Passengers don't use this entrance.
Passengers don't use this entrance. The words came sharp and certain, the way people speak when they think they're protecting something important. Captain Simone Laurent paused at the aircraft door, flight bag in hand, and met the flight attendant's eyes. She'd been flying commercial jets for 11 years. She'd landed planes in crosswinds that made grown men pray. She'd walked this same aircraft type through emergency checklists at 35,000 feet with an engine on fire. But right now, standing at the threshold of her own flight deck, she had to decide something smaller and somehow bigger. How to respond to a woman who couldn't see her. The flight attendant, young, blonde, with the kind of polished confidence that comes from 100 shifts of being right, stepped into the doorway, blocking it completely. "The gate agent will help you find your seat," she said, voice bright with professional courtesy. "But you'll need to board with your group." Simone felt the familiar weight settle in her chest. Not anger. Something older than that. The exhaustion of being doubted in the same uniform everyone else wore without question. She glanced down at her captain's stripes, 4 gold bars on each shoulder, unmistakable. The flight attendant's eyes didn't follow. "Miss," Simone said quietly, "I'm Captain Laurent, this is my flight." The woman's smile didn't waver. "I'm sure you are," she said, the way you'd humor a child. "But I'm going to need you to take your seat so we can finish boarding." Behind Simone, passengers were starting to pile up in the jetway. She could feel their eyes, could hear the shift in energy as people pulled out phones. This moment was about to be recorded, shared, made into something viral and permanent. And whatever she did next would matter long after today. Let me tell you something about Simone Laurent that you wouldn't know from looking at her. She'd wanted to fly since she was 7 years old. Not because of some romantic notion about the sky, though she loved that too, but because her grandfather had been a Tuskegee airman, and he'd told her that the cockpit was the one place where gravity didn't care about your skin. "Up there," he'd said, tapping the old photograph of himself in flight gear, "physics is the only thing that matters. You respect the machine respects you." He died when she was 12. But she'd kept that picture, carried it through every stage of training, every rating, every interview where she was the only woman in the room, and certainly the only black woman. It was in her flight bag right now, tucked into the same pocket as her FAA certificates and her crew ID. Proof that she belonged. Not that she should need it. The flight attendant was still blocking the door. "I understand there's been some confusion," Simone said, keeping her voice level, "but I need to access the flight deck. We're scheduled to push back in 30 minutes. Ma'am, I'm going to ask you one more time to take your seat." There it was. Ma'am. Not captain. Not even a glance at the stripes that marked her rank as clearly as a name tag. Simone could feel the passengers shifting behind her. Someone coughed. A child asked a question in a loud whisper. She had options. She could insist, could raise her voice just enough to summon a supervisor, could pull out her crew badge and make this woman look at what she'd been refusing to see. But Simone had learned a long time ago that being right didn't protect you from being labeled difficult. And difficult had ended more than one career that looked like hers. "What's your name?" Simone asked. The flight attendant blinked. "Excuse me." "Your name," Simone repeated gently. "I'd like to know who I'm speaking with." A flicker of uncertainty. "Brooke." "Brooke, I'm going to step aside and let these passengers board, but I need you to call the gate and verify the crew list for Flight 1247. Can you do that for me?" Brooke's jaw tightened. "I know the crew list." "Then you know I'm on it. The captain for this flight is S. Laurent." "That's right." The paperwork said. Brooke stopped herself, but not fast enough. Simone understood. S. Laurent. Not Simone, not Miss or Mrs. Just an initial that could be anything. That should have been anything. But in Brooke's mind had apparently been something else. Someone else. The paperwork was correct, Simone said quietly. I'm Captain Laurent, and I'm asking you professionally to let me through so I can prepare this aircraft for departure. For a long moment, Brooke didn't move. Then a voice came from behind her. Brooke, what's the holdup? Another flight attendant appeared, older brunette, with the tired eyes of someone who'd worked holiday weekends and red-eyes and every nightmare shift in between. Her gaze swept over Simone, caught on the stripes, and her expression changed instantly. Oh my God, Captain Laurent. Simone exhaled, yes. I'm so sorry, Brooke, move, that's the captain. Brooke's face went white, then red. She stepped aside without a word. Simone walked past her, through the galley and into the cockpit. She didn't look back. But she heard the whispers starting behind her. The cockpit was quiet. Simone set her flight bag down in the captain's seat and took a long breath. Her hands were steady, they always were. But her heart was beating just a little too fast, and she gave herself 10 seconds to feel it. The disrespect. The assumption. The exhaustion of having to prove herself before she'd even touched the controls. 10 seconds. Then she got to work. First Officer Marcus Chen was already there, running through the preliminary checks. He looked up when she entered, and something in his expression told her he'd heard the commotion. Everything okay, Captain? Fine, Simone said. Let's get started. He didn't push. That was one of the things she appreciated about Marcus. He'd been her FO for 6 months now, and he'd learned when to ask questions and when to just fly the plane. They worked in companionable silence, calling out checklists, verifying fuel loads, reviewing the weather for their route from Boston to Charlotte. It was a short flight, barely 2 hours. But it still required the same precision as a transatlantic crossing. Every switch, every readout, every communication with ground control. Simone had never cut corners. Not when she was the only black woman in her training class. Not when an instructor told her she was too cautious for command. Not when she'd been passed over for captain twice, before finally getting her 4th stripe. She did the job right because that was the only version of herself she knew how to be. Pre-flight complete, Marcus said. We're ready when you are. Simone nodded. Let's board. Passengers filed in. Simone stayed in the cockpit, as was standard, but she could hear them. The rolling of suitcases, the rustle of jackets being stowed, the low hum of people settling in for a routine flight. And then voices. I'm telling you, I saw the whole thing. Are you serious? The flight attendant literally wouldn't let her on the plane, told her to go back to her seat. Wait, the captain. 4 stripes and everything, it was ridiculous. Simone kept her eyes on the instruments. Marcus shifted in his seat. You want me to? No, Simone said softly, let them talk. Because here's what she'd learned. You couldn't control what people said about you. But you could control what they saw you do. The door to the cockpit opened slightly, and the older flight attendant, her name tag said Donna, leaned in. Captain, we're almost done boarding. I just wanted to apologize for what happened earlier. That was unacceptable. Simone turned. Thank you, Donna. Is Brooke all right? Donna blinked, clearly surprised by the question. She's embarrassed. Honestly, I think she's mortified. Tell her I'd like to speak with her before we push back. You sure? I'm sure. Donna nodded slowly and disappeared. Marcus gave Simone a look. You're going to talk to her. I am. Why? Simone met his eyes. Because if I don't, she'll spend this whole flight thinking I hate her, and I need my cabin crew focused, not spiraling. She's the one who messed up. I know, Simone said, but I'm the captain, which means I set the tone. 5 minutes later, Brooke appeared at the cockpit door. She looked like she wanted to be anywhere else. "You asked to see me, Captain." Simone stood. "Come in for a second." Brooke stepped inside, stiff and uncomfortable. Marcus excused himself, slipping out to give them space. Simone gestured to the jump seat. "Sit." Brooke sat. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Simone said, "I'm not going to report you." Brooke's eyes went wide. "I thank you. I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to." "Let me finish." Simone's voice was calm, but it carried weight. "I'm not reporting you because I don't think you're a bad person, but I do think you made an assumption that you need to examine." Brooke's face flushed. "I thought the name on the paperwork, I just assumed." "You assumed S. Laurent was a man." Silence. "Probably white," Simone continued, not unkindly. "Probably older, and when you saw me, you didn't even consider that I might be the person you were expecting. You just decided I wasn't." Brooke's eyes filled. "I didn't mean it like that." "I believe you, but intent and impact aren't the same thing." Simone leaned against the console, arms crossed. "Here's what I need from you today. I need you to do your job with the same professionalism you'd give any other captain. I need you to trust that I know what I'm doing. And I need you to think about this moment the next time you see someone who doesn't match your expectations." Brooke nodded, tears slipping down her cheeks. "I will, I promise." "Good," Simone's voice softened. "Now go wash your face and get ready for service. We push back in 10. Brooke stood, hesitated, then said, "Captain Laurent, thank you." Simone just nodded. When Brooke left, Marcus slipped back in. "That was generous," he said. "That was necessary," Simone replied. The flight pushed back on time. Simone taxied to the runway with the same steady hand she always used, listening to ground control, coordinating with Marcus, running through the final checks. At the hold short line, she paused. "Ready?" Marcus asked. Simone glanced at the instruments. Everything was green. "Ready." She pushed the throttles forward. The engines roared. The plane accelerated down the runway, wheels humming against concrete, speed building. 60 knots, 80, 100. "V1," Marcus called. "Point of no commitment." "Rotate." Simone pulled back on the yoke, and the nose lifted. The wheels left the ground. And for a few seconds, the only thing that mattered was the physics of flight. Lift, thrust, drag, weight. Her grandfather had been right. Up here, gravity didn't care. 20 minutes into the flight, Donna's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Donna, your lead flight attendant. I want to take a moment to introduce you to your flight crew today." Simone glanced at Marcus, eyebrows raised. This wasn't standard. Donna continued. "In the cockpit, we have First Officer Marcus Chen, who's been flying with us for 4 years. And your captain today is Simone Laurent, who has over 8,000 flight hours and 11 years of experience flying commercial aircraft." A pause. Captain Laurent is one of fewer than 150 black female commercial pilots in the United States. We're lucky to have her. Please join me in thanking your flight crew for getting you safely to Charlotte today. Applause rippled through the cabin. Simone closed her eyes briefly. She hadn't asked for that, but it mattered anyway. Marcus grinned. "Donna's got your back." "Apparently." A moment later, the cockpit phone buzzed. Simone picked up. "Flight deck." "Captain, it's Donna. I hope that was okay. I thought people should know." Simone's throat tightened. "It was okay, thank you. Also, there's a passenger in 12B who'd like to speak with you after we land. She says she's a retired pilot. Wanted to shake your hand." Simone smiled. "Tell her I'd be honored." 30 minutes from Charlotte, they hit weather. Nothing dramatic, just moderate chop, the kind that made passengers grip armrests and flight attendants secure the carts. Simone adjusted altitude, coordinated with ATC, and kept her voice calm on the PA. Folks, this is Captain Laurent. We've encountered some turbulence as we begin our descent. I've turned on the seatbelt sign. Please remain seated until we're through this. Should be about 10 minutes. Thank you for your patience. Short, clear, no unnecessary drama. Marcus handled the radio while Simone flew. The plane bucked and swayed, but she kept it steady, hands firm on the yoke, eyes scanning the instruments. This was the part most people never thought about. The part where flying wasn't glamorous or exciting. It was just work. Hard, focused, relentless work. And Simone was very, very good at it. 10 minutes later, they broke through the clouds into smooth air. There we go, Marcus said. Simone allowed herself a small smile, nice and easy. Charlotte approach brought them in from the east. Simone flew the approach manually. She always did when conditions allowed. Automation was a tool, but she believed in keeping her skills sharp. Gear down, she said. Marcus lowered the landing gear, 3 green lights. Flaps 30. Flaps 30. The runway appeared ahead, a clean line of lights in the late afternoon haze. Simone made micro-adjustments, feeling the plane respond, reading the wind, the speed, the descent rate. 500 feet, Marcus called. 400. 300. The runway rose to meet them. Simone eased back on the yoke. The wheels kissed the pavement with barely a chirp. Nice landing, Captain, Marcus said. Thanks. She reverse thrust, slowed the aircraft, and guided it off the runway toward the gate. In the cabin, passengers applauded. Simone had never quite understood that tradition. Applauding a landing was like applauding a surgeon for finishing an operation. But today, she let herself appreciate it. After the plane parked and the seatbelt sign went off, Simone made her way to the cabin. It wasn't required. Most pilots stayed in the cockpit, said goodbye over the PA, and left through the jet bridge without ever seeing passengers' faces. But Simone had always believed in being seen. She stood near the exit as passengers filed off, nodding to their thanks, shaking hands when offered. An older black woman stopped, took both of Simone's hands in hers and said, "Baby, you don't know what it meant to see you up there." Simone's eyes stung, "Thank you." A little girl, maybe 8, tugged her mother's sleeve and pointed. "Mommy, is she the pilot?" "She is, sweetie." "I didn't know girls could do that." Simone crouched down to the girl's level. "Girls can do anything. You remember that, okay?" The girl nodded, eyes wide. When the passengers had deplaned, the woman from 12B approached. She was white, probably in her late 60s, with short silver hair and the upright posture of someone who'd spent years in a cockpit. "Captain Laurent, I'm Ellen Bradshaw, retired from Delta." They shook hands. "It's an honor," Simone said. Ellen smiled. "The honor's mine. I heard what happened during boarding." Simone's expression didn't change. Word travels fast. It does when someone records it and posts it to Twitter. Ellen pulled out her phone and showed Simone the screen. There it was. A video, shot from somewhere in the middle of the jetway queue, showing Brooke blocking the aircraft door and Simone standing calmly, flight bag in hand, 4 stripes clearly visible. The caption read, "Flight attendant wouldn't let the black female captain board her own plane. This is what bias looks like." It had 47,000 views already. Simone closed her eyes briefly. "Of course." "I know this probably isn't what you wanted," Ellen said gently. "But for what it's worth, the comments are on your side. People are furious." "I'm not," Simone said quietly. Ellen tilted her head. "No." "Brooke made a mistake. She apologized. We moved on." Simone looked at the phone again, then back at Ellen. "I don't need the internet to punish her. I just need her to do better." Ellen studied her for a long moment. "You know," she said slowly, When I started flying in 1983, there were maybe a dozen women in my airline, total, and none of them looked like you." She paused. "I thought I had it hard, and I did, but I also had the privilege of people assuming I might be competent even if they doubted it. You don't even get that assumption, do you?" Simone shook her head. "Not often. And yet you handled that with more grace than I would have." "I've had practice." Ellen smiled sadly. "I'm sure you have." She handed Simone a business card. "I do consulting now. Leadership development, bias training for airlines. If you're ever interested in speaking, sharing your experience, I'd love to work with you." Simone took the card. "I'll think about it." "Please do." Ellen squeezed her shoulder. "The industry needs more people like you, not just in the cockpit, everywhere." By the time Simone reached the crew lounge, the video had 200,000 views. Her phone was full of messages. Texts from friends and former classmates. Emails from journalists requesting interviews. A voicemail from her mother that just said, "Baby, call me." And one message from the airline's communications team. "Captain Laurent, we're aware of the incident during boarding of Flight 1247. Please contact us at your earliest convenience to discuss." Simone sat down heavily. She'd known this was coming. The airline would want to manage the story. They'd want a statement, a narrative, probably an apology, not from her but on behalf of her, which somehow felt worse. She didn't want to be a story. She just wanted to fly. But she also knew she didn't get that choice anymore. The moment Brooke had blocked that door, the moment someone had hit record, Simone had become something bigger than herself. A symbol. A conversation. A test case for how the airline handled discrimination. She called the communications team. The woman on the other end of the line introduced herself as Monica Reeves, Senior VP of Public Relations. "Captain Laurent, thank you for calling. I want to start by saying the airline fully supports you and is deeply sorry for what happened." "Thank you," Simone said carefully. "We're preparing a public statement condemning bias and reaffirming our commitment to diversity. We'd like your input before we release it." "What kind of input?" "Well, we want to make sure you're comfortable with the language, and we'd like to know if you'd be willing to participate in a press conference." "No." Monica paused. "No. I'm not doing a press conference," Simone said firmly. "I'm not becoming the face of this story. I did my job. I'd like to continue doing my job." "I understand, but the public is responding very strongly. This is an opportunity to show leadership on inclusion." "Then show it," Simone interrupted, "but not with me as the poster child. Show it with policy changes, training, accountability structures so this doesn't happen to the next person." Silence on the other end. Then Monica said slowly, "What are you suggesting?" "I'm suggesting you take this seriously, not as a PR problem but as a systems problem." Simone leaned forward. "How many black women are captains at this airline?" "I'd have to check though." "4," Simone said. "Out of nearly 3,000 captains, I looked it up. So if you want to support me, support that. Invest in recruitment, mentorship, bias training that actually works. Make sure flight attendants know what their captains look like before they show up at the door." Another pause. "I'll bring this to leadership," Monica said. "Good, and Monica." "Yes. If you release a statement using my name without my permission, I'll have a problem with that." "Understood." Simone hung up. Her hands were shaking. She just told a senior VP how to do her job. That could end badly. But she also knew she was right. And she was tired of being quiet just to keep people comfortable. By that evening, the video had 2 million views. Captain Laurent was trending on Twitter. News outlets were picking it up. Black female pilot blocked from her own cockpit. Viral video shows flight attendant discrimination. Airline under fire after captain incident. Simone turned off her phone. She sat in her apartment, looking out at the Charlotte skyline, and thought about her grandfather. He'd faced worse. So much worse. Men who wouldn't let him eat in the same room, who made him use separate facilities, who told him he'd never fly for a real airline because of the color of his skin. And he'd kept flying anyway. Not because it was easy. Because it mattered. Simone had his photo on her bookshelf. She picked it up now, studied his face, young, serious, proud in his uniform. "I'm still here, Grandpa," she whispered, "still flying." She set the photo down and made herself dinner. Tomorrow she had another flight. Simone's next assignment was a longer route, Charlotte to Seattle. 5.5 hours. She arrived at the airport early, as always, and went through security without incident. But she noticed people looking at her. Double takes, whispers. A TSA agent smiled and said, "Safe flight, Captain." In the crew lounge, 2 flight attendants she didn't know approached her. "Captain Laurent, we just wanted to say we saw what happened. We're sorry." "Thank you." For what it's worth, we've had training sessions this morning, the whole crew base, about implicit bias and respecting rank. Simone raised her eyebrows. "Already?" "Yeah, mandatory. They said more is coming." When Simone boarded her flight, the lead attendant was waiting. His name was Kevin, and he greeted her with professional warmth. "Captain Laurent, good to have you. Everything's ready in the cockpit. Let me know if you need anything." "Thank you, Kevin." No questions, no assumptions. Just respect. It felt strange, Simone realized, because it was so rare. Somewhere over Montana, Marcus asked the question Simone had been waiting for. "How are you doing with all of this?" She didn't pretend not to know what he meant. "I'm tired," she said honestly. "I didn't ask to be a symbol." "But you are one now." "I know." Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "My sister sent me the video. She's in college, wants to be a pilot." Simone glanced at him. "She said seeing you handle that the way you did, calmly, professionally, it made her feel like she could do it too, like she didn't have to be loud or angry to stand up for herself." Simone's chest tightened. She said, "If Captain Laurent can stay that composed, I can too." Simone looked back at the instruments, blinking hard. "Tell your sister she can call me if she ever needs advice." Marcus smiled. "I will." 3 weeks later, the airline announced new protocols. Mandatory bias training for all staff, with a specific module on recognizing crew members. A updated boarding process, requiring flight attendants to verify crew photos before the flight. A confidential reporting system for discrimination incidents. And this was the part that surprised Simone, a new diversity hearing initiative, with specific goals for recruiting and promoting women and people of color into pilot roles. The press release didn't mention Simone by name, but everyone knew why it was happening. Monica called to tell her personally. "I wanted you to hear it from me first. We took your feedback seriously." "I see that," Simone said. "Thank you." "There's one more thing. The CEO would like to meet with you, not for press, just to listen. He wants to understand how we can do better." Simone considered that. "All right," she said, "I'll meet with him." The CEO's name was Richard Dalton, and he was exactly what Simone expected. White, 60s, expensive suit, corner office with a view. But when she sat down across from him, he surprised her. "Captain Laurent, I'll be honest. I didn't know we had a problem until I saw that video." "That's part of the problem," Simone said quietly. He nodded. "You're right. I've been insulated. I've assumed that because we have diversity statements and training programs we're doing enough. But we're not, are we?" "No, sir." "Tell me what I'm missing." So Simone did. She told him about the small moments. The assumptions, the extra scrutiny, the way she had to be twice as prepared because any mistake would be attributed to her race or gender, not her inexperience or humanity. She told him about the other women of color in the airline, the ones who'd left because they got tired of fighting. She told him about the pipeline problem, how few young black girls even knew being a pilot was an option, let alone felt like it was available to them. I didn't see anyone who looked like me until I was in college, Simone said. And even then, she was the only one. That isolation matters. It wears you down. Richard listened, took notes, asked questions. And at the end, he said, "What if we created a mentorship program? Pair experienced pilots like you with aspiring ones. Fund scholarships. Partner with HBCUs and community organizations." "That would help," Simone said, "but only if it's real, not a press release, a genuine long-term investment." "It will be," Richard said. "I'm putting my name on it, and I'm putting resources behind it. Will you help me build it?" Simone looked at him carefully. She'd been burned before by promises that sounded good in boardrooms and evaporated in budget meetings. But she also knew that change didn't happen from the outside alone. "I'll help," she said, "but I'm still flying. This doesn't become my full-time job." "Understood." They shook hands. 2 months later, Simone got an email. The subject line said, "I thought you should know." It was from Donna, the lead flight attendant from that first flight. "Captain Laurent, I wanted to update you on Brooke. After the incident, she was put on leave pending review, but instead of getting defensive, she asked to be part of the new bias training pilot program. She's been attending sessions, doing the work, really examining herself. Last week, she asked if she could speak to new hires about what happened. She told them the whole story, how she blocked you, how wrong she was, how much it's changed her. She said, "I thought I wasn't racist because I didn't hate anyone, but I realized bias isn't about hate. It's about assumptions, and my assumptions hurt someone who deserved better. I thought you'd want to know she's trying." "Donna." Simone read it twice. Then she wrote back, "Donna, thank you for telling me. I appreciate Brooke's willingness to grow. That takes courage. If she's open to it, I'd be willing to speak with her again. Not because she needs my forgiveness, that's personal and she has it, but because I think we could both help each other understand this better. Let me know." Simone. They met at a coffee shop near the airport. Brooke looked different, older somehow, more tentative. "Captain Laurent, thank you for agreeing to this." "Call me Simone, we're not on the clock." They sat down. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Brooke said, "I've been trying to figure out how to apologize in a way that matters, because saying, 'I'm sorry,' feels too small for what I did." "It's a start," Simone said. "I keep replaying it in my head, how sure I was that you didn't belong there, how I didn't even look at your stripes." Brooke's voice cracked. "I've been a flight attendant for 3 years. I've worked with dozens of captains, and I've never once asked a man to prove who he was." Simone nodded. "I believe you. I didn't think I was biased. I really didn't. I have black friends I voted for." She stopped herself. "God, I'm doing it again, making excuses." "You are," Simone said gently, "but you're also doing something harder. You're looking at yourself honestly. That's more than most people do." Brooke wiped her eyes. "I don't know how you stayed so calm. If someone treated me like that, I would have lost it." Simone took a sip of her coffee. "I stayed calm because I've learned that my anger costs me more than it costs the people I'm angry at. But that doesn't mean I wasn't hurt. I was. I am." "I hurt you." "Yes." Brooke absorbed that. "How do I do better?" "You're already doing it," Simone said. "You're listening, you're learning, you're willing to be uncomfortable. That's the work." She leaned forward. "But here's the thing, Brooke. You can't just do this once and check a box. You have to keep paying attention, keep noticing your assumptions, keep asking yourself who you trust automatically and who you make prove themselves. Brooke nodded. I will, I promise. Good, Simone smiled slightly. And maybe when you're ready you can help teach other people, because this isn't just about you and me, it's about the system we're all in. I'd like that, Brooke said. 6 months after the incident, the airline officially launched the Captain's Circle Mentorship program. Simone was one of 12 pilot mentors. Her first mentee was a 22-year-old named Jasmine, a recent flight school graduate with big dreams and bigger student loans. They met once a month. Simone answered questions about flight training, job applications, what to expect in interviews. But more than that, she answered the questions Jasmine didn't know how to ask. How do you deal with being the only one? What do you do when someone doubts you? How do you stay confident when the world keeps telling you you don't belong? Simone didn't sugarcoat it. It's hard, she said. Some days it's really hard. You'll have moments where you want to quit, where you'll wonder if it's worth it. But is it? Jasmine asked. Simone thought about the little girl from the flight. I didn't know girls could do that. She thought about Marcus's sister. She thought about her grandfather. Yes, she said, it's worth it. A year after the incident, a filmmaker approached Simone. She wanted to make a short documentary about Black women in aviation. Simone's story would be part of it, but not all of it. There would be other pilots, mechanics, air traffic controllers, women who'd been breaking barriers quietly for decades. I want to show what you actually do, the filmmaker said. Not just the viral moment, the whole picture. Simone agreed. They filmed her pre-flight routine, her conversations with her crew, the careful, methodical work of flying a plane full of people safely from one city to another. They filmed her meeting with Jasmine. They filmed her speaking at a high school career day where she told a room full of teenagers, "The sky isn't a limit, it's a beginning." And they filmed her in her apartment, holding her grandfather's photo. He didn't get to see this, Simone said quietly. Me as captain, the change is happening, but I feel like he'd be proud. What would you say to him? The filmmaker asked from behind the camera. Simone's eyes filled. I'd say thank you for showing me it was possible, for being brave when bravery costs so much more. She wiped her eyes. And I'd say I'm still flying, Grandpa, still here. The documentary premiered at a small film festival. Simone didn't think much would come of it. But it won an audience award. Then it got picked up by a streaming service. Then it started getting attention. Articles, reviews, social media buzz. People who'd never thought about who was flying their planes suddenly realized they'd been making assumptions. Simone's inbox filled again. But this time it wasn't journalists. It was young women. I'm in flight school because of you. I didn't think I could be a pilot until I saw your story. Thank you for not giving up. Simone read every single one. And she replied when she could. 2 years after the incident, Simone was invited to receive an award from the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals. She almost didn't go. Awards felt strange. She'd just been doing her job. But her mother convinced her. Baby, this isn't about you being special. It's about you being seen. Let them honor that. So Simone went. The room was full of black pilots, engineers, astronauts, people who'd carved space in an industry that hadn't made room for them. When they called her name, she walked to the stage. The applause was thunderous. She looked out at the audience and saw faces like hers. People who understood. I didn't set out to be a symbol, she said into the microphone. I just wanted to fly, but I've learned that sometimes visibility is its own kind of service. She paused. When that flight attendant blocked my door, I had a choice. I could fight loudly or I could respond strategically. I chose strategy, Not because I wasn't angry, I was, but because I knew that how I handled that moment would matter for more than just me. She looked down at the award in her hands. I'm honored to receive this, but I'm more honored to be in a room with all of you, because you're the ones who paved the runway. I'm just flying the route you made possible. The applause came again. And this time, Simone let herself feel it. 3 years after the incident, Simone was scheduled for a flight from Boston to Charlotte. The same route. The same aircraft type. Different day, different crew. But when she arrived at the gate, she saw a familiar face. Brooke. She was in uniform, standing near the boarding door, and when she saw Simone, her expression shifted through a dozen emotions at once. Simone walked over. Brooke. Captain Laurent, Brooke smiled nervously. I didn't know you were on this flight. Crew scheduling surprise, Simone said lightly. How have you been? Good, really good actually. I'm a lead attendant now, and I've been helping with the bias training program. I heard that's excellent. Brooke hesitated. I think about that day a lot, what happened. So do I, Simone said. I'm sorrier than I know how to say. I know, Simone's voice was kind, and I forgive you, I did a long time ago. Brooke's eyes filled, thank you. But more importantly, Simone continued, I'm proud of you for doing the work for helping others learn that matters. Brooke nodded speechless. Simone squeezed her shoulder and headed toward the cockpit. Before she stepped inside, she turned back. Brooke. Yes, Captain. Let's have a good flight. Brooke smiled, yes, ma'am. This time boarding went smoothly. Simone ran through her pre-flight checks with her FO, a young woman named Tasha, one of the new hires from the Diversity Initiative. Nervous? Simone asked. A little, Tasha admitted. This is only my 10th flight as FO. You'll be fine, just follow the checklists and communicate. I've got you. Tasha smiled, thank you, Captain. They pushed back on time. Taxied to the runway. Took off into a clear sky. And as the plane climbed through 10,000 feet, Simone felt something settle in her chest. Peace. Not because everything was fixed. Not because discrimination had ended or bias had disappeared. But because she'd done what she could. She'd flown well. She'd spoken up. She'd helped build something that would outlast her. And that was enough. The approach into Charlotte was smooth. Simone talked Tasha through the descent, the configuration changes, the final approach checks. You're doing great, she said. Just keep it steady. Tasha landed the plane with only a slight bounce. Not bad, Simone said. You'll get smoother with practice. Thank you for letting me land. You're the one flying. I'm just here if you need me. After they parked, Simone stood at the exit again, saying goodbye to passengers. A young black girl, maybe 10, stopped in front of her. Are you the captain? I am. The girl's face lit up. I'm going to be a pilot too. Simone crouched down. Yeah, that's wonderful. What made you want to fly? My mom showed me a movie about you. The one where the lady was mean and you stayed calm. Simone's heart clenched. Well, if you ever need advice, you come find me, okay? Okay, the girl ran back to her mother, who mouthed thank you over her daughter's head. Simone stood, looked around the cabin, thought about how far she'd come from that hallway moment, and realized she'd never been trying to prove herself to Brooke. She'd been proving to herself that dignity was stronger than doubt, that competence outlasted contempt, that showing up calmly and consistently could change not just one flight, but the whole flight path for people coming behind her. 5 years after the viral video, Simone was promoted to check airman, one of the senior pilots responsible for evaluating and training other captains. She was the first black woman to hold that position at her airline. By then, the number of black female captains had doubled. Still a small number, still not enough. But growing. The mentorship program had expanded to 15 major airlines. Brooke was still flying, still teaching bias awareness sessions, still doing the work. And Jasmine, Simone's first mentee, had just finished her training and been hired as a first officer. Simone was there the day Jasmine got her wings. Watched her pin them on with shaking hands. Pulled her into a hug and whispered, "Welcome to the sky." That night, Simone sat in her living room and pulled out her grandfather's photo one more time. She'd carried it for so long. Through training, through doubt, through that hallway. Through everything. "We did it, Grandpa," she said softly. "We're still flying." She set the photo back on the shelf. And then she opened her laptop and answered 3 emails from young women asking how to become pilots. Because the work wasn't finished. It never really was. But every answer, every flight, every young face that saw her in that uniform and thought maybe I can too. That was the runway. And Simone was going to keep building it, one flight at a time. Here's what I want you to remember. Dignity doesn't require permission. Competence doesn't need to shout. And the way you respond to disrespect can matter more than the disrespect itself. Simone could have made that moment in the hallway about anger. She chose to make it about change. Not just for herself, but for every person who'd walk onto a plane after her and deserved to be seen for who they were, not who someone assumed they couldn't be. She didn't need Brooke to face public humiliation. She needed Brooke to face herself. And when that happened, when the work got real and uncomfortable and personal, that's when the door started to open. Not with a fight. With a conversation. With policy. With mentorship. With the quiet, steady insistence that she belonged in that cockpit, and so did everyone who came after her. That's the kind of justice that lasts. Not the viral moment. The years of work that follow. So if you're ever standing in a hallway, waiting for someone to see you, remember Captain Laurent. Stay calm. Stay clear. Do the work so well they can't ignore it. And when you get through that door, hold it open for the next person. Because that's how the sky gets wider. One flight at a time. Grace under pressure isn't weakness. It's the strongest thing you'll ever do.